Hello and welcome to this webinar on what's new in KNIME Analytics Platform 5.3. Hello to all around the world. Good morning, good evening, good day, good night. My name is Bernd. I'm part of the product and development team here at KNIME, based in Constance, Germany. I have here with me a few of my colleagues, also from the product and development team, who are going to show some of the new functionality that was added recently in the version that was just released 2 weeks ago. Maybe we can do a quick introduction. We have Peter here from the UX team. Peter is running UX at KNIME. He is the driving force behind everything that relates to modern UI, the new front end. Peter, say hello, please.
Hi all. Welcome to the webinar.
Yeah. We have Carsten here. Carsten is team lead, also based in Constance. Carsten is expert for analytics, scripting everything. We have him talk about a bit the expression node in a second.
Hi.
And then also Adrian. Adrian
Hello.
is one of the driving forces behind everything that relates to AI in KNIME. We have him showcase some of the new functionality that was also added. Yeah. That's about the introduction. Let's start right with what's new in modern UI and a bit of an introduction into Analytics Platform 5.3. And for that, I'll give it to you, Peter.
Thank you, Bernd. Welcome to the demo and the features that we have implemented over the past couple of weeks and months. I want to showcase you today like 5 huge changes that we have developed. First of all, I will showcase you the revised home tab. The second thing is how we embedded now some views, an extended shortcut support. A fourth one is the workflow monitor to debug your workflows. And last but not least, some quality of life enhancements that we have added to the application, but also to the Space Explorer. So let's deep dive into the what you have already seen here as the new revised home tab. We have changed it in a way that you have on the left like an overview of your connected hubs, your local space, and your navigation. Below there, you will find a dynamic content tile where we showcase, like, for example, future events. So, for example, the data hub in Frankfurt. But there will also pop up different information that are relevant to you. In the content part, you will see, like, for the beginners especially, like some example workflows. And this is also like dismissible, so for the more experienced one that don't necessarily need to start with this predefined workflows, you can also dismiss this examples part. In addition to that, we have like a link to the KNIME Community Hub, to the starter collection, to give you more information about the starter, about the beginning of KNIME. At the bottom, we have added now recently used workflows and components. Here you can see all of mine recently opened workflows and components, and can go back there and open the different workflows. For example, if I want to open this workflow, I can double click and then it opens again. Next, what I want to showcase you are the views, the embedded views. So let's switch over to the different workflow. So the second thing we have added to the 5.3 release are the embedded views. What does this mean? Before the release, you had like this table at the bottom, and you see like our node monitor and showcase the different tables. With the 5.3 release, we have also added like the potential to showcase like the views, the new one. So you see like here a scatter plot, a pie chart, a bar chart, based on the data that are used in this workflow. What is also possible to see like where your data comes from and how they are looking like later on, we have added the potential to select data. So if, for example, I select those data points, those are also covered in this table. You see like there's the checkbox has changed, so you can show only the selected rows, so you see where this data is coming from. Similar to this pie chart, you see now here, okay, you have seen like this selected segment, or if I select like the euro and go back to my table, you see the selected data rows for this kind of selection. The third thing I want to showcase you is the workflow monitor. We have received a lot of feedback regarding putting there like a console into modern UI. And what we have really looked into, what is the use case in terms of debugging workflows. So what we have added is like a workflow monitor that showcases you the current state that is currently the workflow in. So if, for example, I execute all my complete workflow, you see like there are warnings, there are errors coming up. And what I can do now is like looking into my different warnings, see where they are, jump directly to the different nodes, but not only like within this current level of the workflow, but also like if you have nested workflows with meta nodes or components, you can dive into the different meta nodes or workflows, fix your problems, and then move on. Like for example here, or for example here. One other big thing that we have worked on over the past week and where we have put a lot of effort into is the shortcut support. So what you see now at the bottom left is like not something that is added to the KNIME Analytics platform. It should just showcase you which kind of shortcuts I will be pressing, because I'm not only use anymore the touchpad or the mouse. So you see like here I'm tabbing and I can go via the different workflows and activate, for example, like this workflow or this workflow. Jump back. And I can also go into my navigation, go from the recent workflow to the local space, and can also navigate inside the local space, like in the content area, from one to another element, and open up also there like different workflows with enter, for example. Just quickly jump back. Also, what is doable inside the shortcuts demo, like using the application itself here. Like, for example, you can open up the different menus, execute all the workflow, changing the active tab here. Also reaching the different buttons here to change the description of a workflow, go into the different node repo.
Peter, can I chime in?
Yes.
So there are tons of keyboards. I didn't remember all of them. How would I know which button to press to do what?
Yeah, there are tons of different shortcuts, as you mentioned. What we have added also is like here in the help menu, like a shortcuts overview. There you see all the different shortcuts. Here on my operating system, it's a Mac, so that's the reason why you see this different icons. And then you can filter, for example, for connecting nodes and learn how to connect nodes or flow variables, like nodes within the flow variable connection, and so on. Yeah.
So I think you just have to remember the ones that you like most or find most productive, and then
on the one hand, like it is super useful on accessibility reasons, so you can interact with the system only with the keyboard, but also like if you're more more advanced user, you can learn them and fasten like your workflow building, right?
Yes, and we have some super power users that operate the workflow almost only by keyboards.
Yeah, so for example, like building up these workflows and then using command and dot, for example, and to connect them, this is super, super fast and then powerful, I would say. Yeah. So I can also show, like, for example, some additional things we have added regarding shortcuts is, for example, moving stuff around, changing their dimension. Also, this works for nodes, right? So move them around. But also to select multiple nodes and select them and move them around. So this was one thing. For connecting nodes, as I've searched right now, there are, this was always also previously working, but now we have added like the support to connect these nodes, disconnect them, right?
Yeah, that was #1 feature request after we released KNIME 5.0.
Yeah, so it was previously in the classic UI, it was possible, like only for the connections. But now what we've added, just to jump here, is also the support to connect like the flow variables. So in this case, like a date and time widget with a CSV reader, for example, right? And if you go down here and select all of those nodes and connect them, you can connect them also in this case. Two things I want to quickly showcase also, as this was one, I think, and also reached out in a forum, is like it sometimes happened that people are clicking by accident the delete key when they want to delete like a port. Now what we have changed there is also like adding a port here for meta nodes. And then you can navigate back, and now if you delete it, like it's not anymore the node deleted, but only the port. So it's also a huge usability improvement, I would say, as otherwise you need to go back and forth, and that's really otherwise frustrating, right? Also, what I want to mention is like entering meta nodes and components. This is also doable, but it's more like an advanced shortcut. So jumping into it, jumping out to it. Is also doable. One last thing that was also highly requested in the forum is like not only detaching, this was already possible, but detaching via like a hotkey. In the classic UI, it was the case that you can only open like the first view.
Yep.
And what we have added now is not only like, just quickly change it, like changing the bottom tab from the first port to the second and so on, and to the flow variables port, but also like detaching them right with the hotkey, and not only the first one, but also the other.
I guess that one is specifically useful as if you go back to your views demo where you have the different views interacting with each other, and you even showed that there was a pie chart that is translating to a number of selections that need to be made. So if you want to arrange your views next to each other and see kind of this particular group is represented here by these data points, and you need to have those views popped out so that you can interact with the data. I think it's one of the strengths, underestimated strengths of KNIME, that you can really do this explorative data analysis and exploration.
I would also say like this was really, or this is really interesting also to not only see like the selection outside in the detached views, but also in all the different views that we have now. Also, what we have added in terms of accessibility, but also usability, is like a way of changing the interface scale. So now it is possible like to make it larger or smaller. This is especially useful for bigger screens or smaller screens, and then it depends also then on the eyesight the user has, right? So make it a bit larger, and then it also works out of the box. Last but not least, what we have also developed, and what I want to mention, is like general app enhancement. Maybe you have already mentioned, seen like the small plus button. So this allows you to create a new workflow in this Space Explorer path. And it's a well-known pattern that a lot of you know from browsers. What is also pretty nice is, but therefore I need to open up quickly Community Hub example. What we have also is if you're working with multiple workflows and you want to see where this workflow is coming from, then we have added here like a context menu, not only to close the project, but also reveal this in your Space Explorer. So you can search for the different, or you can find the different workflows directly here via this menu. One thing that we have also, added is like a filter on the current level. So if you have a lot of workflows, then you can quickly filter them and then open them, right? This doesn't work only for this won't not only work for the space itself, but it will also work for the different spaces that you have. For example, if you have here a lot of different spaces and you're looking for one specific, then you can directly find it if it's a really long list. And last but not least, for the Community Hub, we have also now the potential to create a new space. So directly in the UI, it's creating, and then you can start with your journey also on the KNIME Community Hub. And yeah, that's all I wanted to showcase today.
Thank you, Peter. There are some more gimmicks that users can explore. They are all also on the What's New pages. I'm going to point to that in a second. Thank you for that. Maybe one last question. What's your favorite? You talked about hotkeys a lot. What's your favorite new thing in the modern UI, personal?
Personal is like a mix in between the shortcuts, but also like the recent workflows.
Yeah, thank you for that answer. Okay, yeah, let's move on to the next part, which will be everything around expression and a new node, and we ask Carsten to demo that.
Yeah, thank you. So you already said we have a new expression node, and this new expression node is basically, well, the Swiss Army knife for your data manipulations. If you're coming from Excel, you have formulas there that you can enter to work on individual cells. How this expression node works is that it always works on one row of the data in your table. And let me show you a little bit how that works. So we have some input table here, Olympics data with things about Summer Olympics, different years, different sports, different events, when athletes were born, what they're called, and so on and so on. And with this data, I'm now going to play around with the expression node. So this here is the new expression node. If you have already tried the Python scripting node or the eCharts node, then the layout might be familiar for you. In the middle, you have an editor for entering your expression. It already shows a little example. On the left-hand side, you see all the columns available in the input table that you can use. On the right-hand side, we do have a function catalog, so all different things that you could do in here, like applying some math formula or, for instance, working with strings and extracting some characters, applying regexes, and so on and so on. And they all, if you click them, they'll have a documentation down here, so that will help you get around. You can search and filter those. Now let me show you this a little bit in action. What I want to do is, for the beginning, just take the year when somebody was born, and I want to extract the year. I forgot to mention down here, there's you can specify whether you want this expression, whatever it produces, should it produce a new column, or do you want to replace the content of an old column? So if you want to replace an old column, you can click that and select. But let's say I want to just extract the year when somebody was born. And now the cool thing is You can click evaluate first 10 rows, and then it'll show a preview down here, and it appended a new column called year. But for now, the only content I placed in here, let me get rid of the example, is just exactly what was in the born column. So it'll look at this value and put it into the next column. But now I only want to get the year. So the year, already have the right category open here. I can use the first characters, the first n characters, which, looking at the data, I know it's 4. So I can drag and drop or double click to get the function in here and say I need 4 characters, evaluate again. If I look at that, then yes, that's looking good already. But now it's still a string, and I know it's numerical data. So if I want to, for instance, later apply some math on it, then I would want that to be a number. And to make it a number, I'm looking for a way to make this an integer. And see, the autocompletion suggests parse int. You can unfold the documentation also here, or just apply it and hover over something, and you'll also see the documentation. Now, if I run this, go to the right again, then now the year column is a number, which is great. Okay, now this was how you could construct your own expression to work with your data, row by row. What you might have seen in the Python scripting editor already and in the general eCharts view node, we have an AI integration that helps you if you don't know your way around the node that well yet, or if we don't know the way around the node yet ourselves. So something we could do is now, I've extracted the year when somebody was born, but we also know when the Olympics were taking place. So let's say we want to compute the age of the athlete at the sports event. Like you might have seen in different places, when you use our AI integrations, our Kai, you have to accept that we will send this prompt and information about the table, not the data, but whether the column names and the types to OpenAI. If that's fine with you, then you can write a prompt. So here the prompt is, I want to compute the age of the athlete at the competition. And because it doesn't see the data, it can help to be specific. In that case, I think it would even work without, it might need to know this, but it could estimate that the born column has the year somewhere at the beginning. Let's see what it does. So it suggests, move that a little bit. It actually took my line and used that part as the year when somebody was born, yes, and it also parsed the first 4 characters from the addition, turned that into an int. That looks good. Let's say this is the age. Create a new column, and then we'll see that now we have a column that contains the age of the athlete at the competition. That's great. Okay, so these are some things you can do with this node, but I want to also show you some more advanced tasks you can do. So let me add another expression node. Maybe you've used the rule filter node before, the rule engine node before, which allows you to, depending on some values in your data, have basically, if you're programming, it's like a switch case statement or something like that. So depending on some values, you want to place a new value in your column. So what I could do here, I can show you, we have condition functions. In this condition category, there's an if and a switch. And right now, what I want to do is I want to say, if somebody won a medal, I want to create a new column that contains win, otherwise loss. And I can type, you see that we get autocompletion for all the columns that are available. And I want to say, this is an integer column, I remember. So I want to say, if we have more than 0 medals, then we want to write win. Otherwise, it's loss. And then if we evaluate that, we will see, oops, no, I wanted to click that one, that it says loss everywhere, but nobody of the first 10 rows won. So we have this little button here that allows you to evaluate not just on the first 10 rows, but also on the first 1,000 rows. And then it tells you here that the preview has been computed on 1,000 rows. And so I might not see it yet, but if you sort the table by medal, you see, there are actually 4 people who won a medal. And then this new column contains the value win. These are the control flow functions we have. Let me get into some other things. I prepared something over here, and thanks to the cool shortcuts, I can easily connect them. One thing you might want to do with your data is not just processing row by row. Sometimes it's nice to know statistics over the full column. So in this, maybe you've noticed I wrote, I want to normalize the age. To normalize data, you would have to well, normalization in what I want to do here now is I want to have 0 mean and a standard deviation of 1. And to do that, you need to compute the average or the mean of the column, and you need to compute the standard deviation. And we have a special set of functions for that. These aggregation columns, it's explained here in the documentation as well. And we see we have an average, and we have a standard deviation function. And I want to do this with the new age column that I showed you just before. So let me construct it the other way around. I want the average of the age column, and oops, I don't care about nan values for now. Yeah, I wanted this here. So subtract the age, the average age from the age. That should already give me values that have 0 mean. And now I divide by the standard deviation. And I can do that again of the column age. And if I do this, okay, now we get some values that look like they could make sense. Let's try. I prepared a histogram view using this nice embedded view that Peter showed before. And now the mean is around 0. And yeah, the mode doesn't spread away too far from 1. So this is probably normalized. OK, one more advanced use case I have prepared over here is you can do windowing. So instead of just using the values of an individual row, you can also access the values in the row before or after when you compute the new value for your new column. And to showcase that, I generated a noisy sine function and want to apply some smoothing. And how would you apply smoothing? Smoothing you can do by just taking a few row values or neighboring values, like have a little window, average over that, and put that value in your row. And that's exactly what I've done. So I've used the average function here of this noisy sine function of the current row, but I also accessed the 2 previous rows and the 2 following rows. And so of these 5 values, I take the average. And if I do that, then you see this sine function is way less jagged than this one. Yeah, and so this was a peek at the expression node. We have node description that explains how you can access data, how you apply, which operators are available, how you access flow variables, how to use the functions, but you've seen the function catalog, it should tell you in the node as well. How these aggregations work for normalization use case I showed, that we have AI assistants, and if you really want to dig in the details, you can click on this link down here. We have a new expression guide in our documentation where this node is explained, but also the expression language is explained in all detail. And yeah, so this new node is basically combination of the string manipulation and math formula node and the rule engine that we have in KNIME.
Yeah, maybe you can comment on that further. So what's the intention of why did we do this, and relative to the existing scripting-like nodes?
Yeah. So so it's not a scripting node per se, because scripting is more complicated. Usually you learn some programming language. This is supposed to be rather easy, like the level of Excel formula or so. But in KNIME we do have a bunch of nodes that all have slightly different scripting or not expression languages, and not the same set of features. So the string manipulation node has lots of string-specific functions. The math formula node has math-specific functions, and we wanted to unify all of that experience. Which
so more is coming in the future on that.
Yes, and because some of you might have tried the column expression node, which is like the Uber expression node that we have. They can do a lot of stuff. We want to go in that direction, but we probably won't support everything, because that can also do loops and so on.
Yeah.
But what is coming next is that we want to allow multiple expressions in this one node, where they can build upon the previously created column, and we want to have more nodes. So this is only an expression node that works with a table input and produces a table output, but we also want to do that for variables. Yes. And we want to build a filter node, so you can do this, use this to have a advanced filtering.
Plus, this node also has the added benefit that it can integrate with Kai, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So which is something that currently you can't do with any of the other nodes. Exactly. Maybe one last comment on where else you can use Kai so far.
Sure.
Because that's...
Maybe if we can show my screen again quickly. I can just show that. Because we have in KNIME embedded, we have this Kai, which is our KNIME AI assistant, and it's a chatbot where you can ask questions. So here you could ask how would I approach a certain data analytics problem, and it'll explain, and it knows about the KNIME nodes and how to build a workflow. And there's even a build mode that can, for not too advanced use cases, it can actually build the workflow and configure the nodes for you, and you just have to press a button and it works.
And then fix it later.
Yeah, well, hopefully not.
Good. Thank you. Thank you, Carsten. I think that is a nice addition that is now coming with 5.3, and more is going to come. Let's move on in the program, because we have one larger block also on AI capabilities. You saw Kai already. You saw how Carsten was using it to enhance his expression and also build workflows. But there's also an AI integration. And here we have Adrian, who can give a bit of an intro. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, the AI extension is now 1 year old. It was released last summer, and we got a ton of feedback going in various directions. And here I have one use case that shows two of the features that we implemented because of the community feedback. One is that we now support Llama 3 in our GPT for all nodes. The other is the text chunker that makes it easy to work with large text files, for example. So here in this workflow, I thought it would be fun to see what Llama 3 thinks about our features that we added in the 5.3 version of the analytics platform. So in the beginning of this workflow, I fetch the What's New page that you can also find on our blog. But that's a bit of a longer text, so I want to split it up into multiple chunks. And before the text chunker, this was possible, but it required quite a few nodes. Now all of this is done in one node here inside of this text chunker. That makes it quite easy to do this kind of task, because you just specify how large a chunk should be and how much overlap you have. Because, well, you could also have zero overlap, but then you might lose some information at the boundary of chunks. So typically you have an overlap so that all of the information is covered by the model. Then I prepare a little prompt where I first ask the model to kind of list the key features that are contained in this blog post or in this chunk of the blog post. And then we get kind of a little summary here where it lists the key features. But that's just for the individual chunks. So we want to actually get kind of an overview and know what it thinks of the added features. And here I ask it what its favorite feature is. And let's see, I think it actually, well, it really likes the workflow monitor, which I usually deal with very deeply nested workflows if I build some. So I also appreciate that quite a lot. And of course, the expression node, which I also used heavily in all of my examples. They are just hidden inside of those nested meta nodes and components. All right. With that, I will move on to the next example, where we thought a little about a common issue that our users have, where the open source models that you can access with GPT-4All locally are just not on par with models from, for example, OpenAI just yet. And therefore, we sometimes need to use OpenAI if we want to get the best performance, both in runtime and in terms of quality. And there might be an issue with personal information here or any sensitive data. And we added the new Presidio extension that helps to actually detect this kind of information and anonymize it or pseudonymize it before sending it to, for example, OpenAI or any other online GenAI provider where you might not want to send this kind of information to. But we can also then actually de-anonymize the answers once we get a reply back. So how does this look like in a workflow? So here I have some prepared chat messages. And in the Presidio analyzer, I can find, for example, persons or email addresses. And here I have a person called Jane Smith and her email address. And I want to anonymize that information. So when we feed that in the Presidio anonymizer, then suddenly it's actually no longer saying Jane Smith here, but Richard instead. All right. And then we can feed that information into our chat model prompter, get an answer back where it actually answers our person Richard. But for the user, our user is Jane Smith. So she would expect to be addressed as such too, right? So there we can use the Presidio de-anonymizer to kind of revert the anonymization we did before, even though we had a model in between that gave us the response. And then we can kind of further process that. And anytime we want to kind of reach out to an external provider, we can do an anonymization and then revert that when we come back and show results to the user. All right, in my next example, I wanted to look a bit at how we can combine GenAI with more traditional means of data analysis or data science. More particularly, I have here a data set of review data of a e-commerce platform. So I have some features around what kind of clothing item the review is for, and also the age, for example, of the person, and the review text, so the actual review. And what I want to predict in this workflow is the kind of rating or positive feedback a review will receive from the community, so that, for example, I could take this workflow and put it on my website to kind of help people that write a review see how their review is likely to do in the kind of for the community and how helpful it is. Obviously, the most important bit here is the review text, but traditional models, such as this XGBoost model here, cannot really deal with text data. They can work with categorical data and numerical data. Boolean data is also fine, but they can't understand text. So what we need to do is we need to turn text into numbers. And traditionally, that was done with approaches like back-of-words creation and a bunch of different text processing techniques, but a lot of information got lost along the way. With embeddings models, we can actually take text and turn it into a vector of numbers. And this vector captures the kind of the essence of our text. And typically, this is nowadays used in vector search approaches to find similar documents, but we can just as well use that as features to train a classifier, or in this case, a regressor model. So what I do here is I connect to a model that is hosted on Hugging Face. Hugging Face, well, anyone who's dealt with GenAI probably has heard that in some shape or form. It's the open source platform for kind of sharing GenAI models online. And they also allow it to actually create dedicated endpoints that you can then use within your applications. And here we added the feature that you can use these endpoints inside of the analytics platform. So you can spin up the endpoint quite easily, connect to it, use it in your workflow, and then shut it down once you're done. But you can also actually run this locally as well, because it's open source and you can just get it and run it. And this will actually take my review text. So we have here as input the review text, and it turns it into quite a lot of columns, numerical columns. So before I have like, I don't know, 11 columns. Afterwards, it's almost 800. So I actually kind of reduced the number of columns a bit using a PCA, another very traditional approach for like statistics and data science. And I apply that to actually get down to around 43 columns. And now I can actually train my model on that. And I'm happy, I guess. Or maybe not, because I don't know how well this model does. And what we would do before 5.3 would probably be something like use a scorer node and see, okay, how's the accuracy or the error in this case. But with 5.3, we added the GIS card scanner node, which is quite helpful because it looks not only at kind of broad statistics like accuracy or mean squared error, but it actually looks at different slices of the data and detects like ethical biases and so on and so forth. But in order to do this, it actually needs not only this model that I output here, but it needs the entire inference workflow, the thing that would actually take our review and give us our result in the end. And that's also including the pre-processing. So here I use the capture workflow start and end node from the integrated deployment extension to actually kind of capture this bit of the workflow and feed that into our GIS card scanner. And that one can then tell us what is wrong with our model, which, as you can see, quite a bit. So I have still some work to do here, but I guess I'll take that home with me. I just wanted to show you what kind of things it detects. So here it actually detects, well, if there's low in the review text, then this affects somehow my model in a negative way. It also detects some ethical biases. So if I switch the gender, for example, the review gets a different rating, which I probably don't want. And it can also detect robustness issues like punctuation or typos. And you can go in here. It shows you examples where this applies and what the problem is. And then you can go back and kind of edit your workflow to fix the issue. All right, I'm not going to do that right now, but instead I'm going to jump right into our last little demo, which shows the OpenAI chat model fine-tuner, which was also requested by quite a few people. And this node allows you to fine-tune an OpenAI chat model, for example, GPT 3.5 Turbo, to your specific use case. To be honest, fine-tuning is no longer as prevalent as it used to be, because you can do a ton of things using prompt engineering, and there it's a lot less effort to get kind of feedback and iterate on your workflow. But there are use cases where it's useful. For example, if you want to specialize a smaller model, like GPT 3.5, to a task that usually you would need a GPT-4 model for, or like a higher intelligence model that is probably more expensive and also a little slower. Or if you want to kind of capture the tone of a certain task or of the examples that you provided for training. So here, what I wanted to do is I wanted to train it to create me some just KNIME challenge, because those also have kind of their own unique KNIME-ish tone in a sense. So here, what I do, I use the Tika parser to fetch or read the first two seasons of the just KNIME challenges and extract the challenges from that. So I have 68 challenges to train on. More data is obviously better, but you can already get started with this amount of data too. And then I have to prepare that a little bit to turn it into kind of a conversation, because those are chat models. They are trained on conversation, but we can also use them for these kind of input-output tasks as well. So here, a typical conversation consists of a system message, a user message, and then what I expect the assistant to answer. So the system message just tells it, hey, you're a just KNIME challenge generator. And the user message contains the instructions like the title, what I want as a title for my challenge, and the difficulty level. And then it gets the actual challenge with that title and difficulty level to kind of train on. Once I finish my training, I can then just use that model in the chat model prompter. And when I created this workflow, the Euro 2024 was still ongoing, so I thought it would be fun to have a challenge to actually predict the winner of that. Although, as we will see here, it's it proposed to look at the data from one of the last Euros. So I don't know if that is the best approach to predict that. I think we have some experts for soccer analytics, right? So maybe those can chime in on that. But that's also just one little use case that's not too technical. I could have also gone into kind of learning our expression language, but that workflow would have looked a little bit more challenging. Let's put it like that. Yeah, and that's it. Back to Bernd and Q&A, right?
No, actually back to all of us. Thank you. Thank you, Adrian. So it didn't predict who was winning. I mean, now it should have been able to predict who was winning.
Yeah,
anyway.
It's not that up to date.
Okay, thanks for the presentation, all of you. We have now time for a few questions, and there's a team, as I said, who was reading through all your questions and comments. So we hit some nerves, let's put it this way. And I think I have discussion topics and questions for all of us. Maybe there were a few people who were commenting on modern UI and classic UI, because they are, like, we have long-term KNIME users, and some of them are still using the classic UI. And maybe starting with some technicality. And I'm just reading the question. I really like the new UI. I don't know whoever said that. Thank you. I do too. But I have not switched because some nodes are not available, right? So some people are not seeing all the nodes. There were also some other questions where people say, and I know Gavin from the forum, he was commenting on the same same topic. Maybe we can quickly clear this out once and for all. About the node availability in both modern and classic UI. Maybe Peter.
Yeah. So they should available like in both of the user interfaces. Like if you start downloading the analytics platform and installing it and open it the first time, it is currently set to the so-called starter perspective. Yeah. So you see only a preset of nodes that are listening up like in the UI, and you can change this via the preference.
Yeah, and those nodes are curated by us based on what we see users use. So these nodes is a subset of all available nodes, but you can enable them and see them all. There's a button right under the node filter, and this will bring you to some configuration setting that allows you to list all of the nodes. But maybe in the same realm, so where are we going to be with classic UI and modern UI? There were also questions, for instance, around functionality. How is it going to be developed further? So what are...
In case of UX improvements and UI improvements, we mainly focus on modern UI. And also, but that doesn't mean that the classic UI is right now gone, right? So you can always reach it via the menu, top right, and then switch to the classic UI. And it's also not, there's no kind of date set when we want to like say, okay, there is no classic UI. Right?
I guess it's important to say that both perspectives are currently available. There is like the modern UI. We started this as a project because it's feedback that we got from our users, and also it's an enabler for us. So if you are using the hub, which is a whole new story by itself, and I've also subscribed to a team plan, you are already able to use the modern UI from the community hub, and this is it's also a functionality, a technology enabler for us that allows us to edit workflows in the browser. And we are continue to innovate and bring new functionality into modern UI. Maybe moving on, hey, this is a good one for you. Isn't the expression node the evolution of the KNIME idea? I guess it goes in the direction where you can do everything using nodes and yeah. What is your comment on that in comparison to programming versus putting workflows together?
I mean, I hope the expression node hits a nerve between the coders and the no coders, but this is for the low coders. So I think it plays an important role in our ecosystem, because we do have lots of nodes that have a dialog where you have to configure, and they do one thing very well. And we have the programming scripting nodes where you can integrate Python, JavaScript, whatever, and really write code that has the full functionality, but you need to know the language. And so if you're in between somewhere, you need something customized, then the expression node is really helpful. And but no, it will not replace all the other nodes we have, because there are a lot of really useful and good nodes that we have. So.
Yeah, if you find yourself that you only have expression nodes in your workflow, then maybe you didn't quite follow the KNIME idea. Good, thank you for that. Maybe one for you, Adrian, on AI topics. When KNIME is planning to bring AWS Bedrock nodes? Maybe quickly comment on what that is. And
okay, yeah, AWS Bedrock or Amazon Bedrock is a GenAI provider in a sense similar to OpenAI, but well, in the AWS ecosystem, and more kind of focused on business to business in a sense, which makes it a bit more challenging to integrate, but we are working on changes that will enable that in the future, not too distant future, I think. Just before this webinar, I actually was looking into how to implement those in detail, but
comments on hub and gateway?
Yeah, I mean, another thing is that we are also about to release our GenAI gateway in the Business Hub, which can already connect to Amazon Bedrock. But I mean, that's not something that is just pure analytics platform, and I think there will also be more content on that in the future to look forward to.
Yeah. Maybe one more back to you. I think the Kai in nodes is most useful. Okay, I'm just reading this here. I agree. So what nodes does Kai support currently? So we saw the expression node.
Yeah,
you demoed quickly the kind of the feature in the main UI. What else is there?
Yeah, so in the nodes, we have the Python scripting nodes, which is the Python script and the Python view nodes, and the expression, the expression I just showed. And the last release, I think we added the generic eCharts view. So it's a node where by writing a little bit of script, you can have customized visualizations. And for these three, we have like the script or code generation. And as you said, we have the Q&A and this build mode. This build mode can work with, I don't know, what is it, around 20 to 30 nodes, I think, currently. But so the most commonly used nodes of KNIME, it can kind of build your workflow from these. And we'll add more over the future for the build modes. Yeah. Well, well, to have one node, we're planning to add one node soon that can deal with a lot of questions, which is the expression node. The build mode currently doesn't use the expression node, but it will do that soon. Yeah. And on the, like, which nodes in terms of in their UI, will we place will we have AI inside the node AI, node UI? We will probably do some SQL or R nodes soon, so we get AI support when writing those kinds of scripts as well.
Yeah, and maybe one correcting comment on the eCharts node. I learned that you just start with asking the question. You don't even enter the script. You just ask what you want to have. And
it's I mean, most of us don't know how to write eCharts, but we can all build cool visualizations by just asking Kai. So this is really cool. Try it out.
And then as I'm observing the questions, so thanks for all the questions. And in case they don't get all answered, please bring them into the KNIME forum for further discussions. There are more pieces of functionality where people ask, for instance, about the new row filter or certain new nodes. So there is and I only take that as a comment. There is more useful functionality that was released in version 5.3. We didn't have all the time to present everything. There is a very, very nice summary page. If you just go onto the KNIME web page, it will be the first link that you see pop up there that gives you a summary of the new pieces of functionality. there is, for instance, here one question, and because it's close to my heart, I was involved in the development. The row filter is also able to to filter missings and non-missings by just reverting the condition. Yeah. See more questions on auto layout and auto typecast. I think maybe one last question. You already mentioned what's your favorite. I guess your is the expression node. You mentioned the favorite of the AI is also the expression node, somewhat biased.
Well, the workflow monitor is also quite high up.
I mean, that is also a game changer once you start debugging workflows that you run, for instance, on the hub. You run into certain error conditions, you can connect to it and then find out what the problem exactly is. Yeah, I think, one last check on the question. Will those workflows that we all showed be available on the, maybe yours won't, but will they be available to people? So what's the best way for us to share examples with the community?
Put them on the hub.
Put them on the hub. If you haven't checked it out, check out hub.knime.com to see what it is. You find all the workflows in there that are relevant, some of the use cases. And I think that completes this session. Thanks to you again. Thanks for everyone watching here. Thanks for the question, the comments, the praises, and the feedback. And I think that concludes this session. If you want to get in touch, just connect with us on the forum. Here are more links. And if you haven't done so, download KNIME and check it out. Thank you, everyone, for participating, and see you next time. Thank you.